welcome everyone to another awesome Teamworker workshop. And today we've got community member Jim Boudreau, who's here to talk about validating your go-to-market strategies. Jim has mentioned he'd love for this to be an interactive session. So if you've got questions, feel free to either raise your hand or using the Zoom feature, or go ahead and put it in the chat. I'd be happy to monitor that as we go. Quick reminder on sort of meeting norms. As I said, please mute if there's anything that goes on with your inability to see or hear. Obviously, if you log off and log back on, I'll toss you back into the room as quickly as I can. I'll be monitoring that as we go. But without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Jim. Jim, welcome and thanks for doing this today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks everybody for joining. These kinds of I'll just say seminars are a lot of fun for me. It is also fun learning about other people's businesses. So again, if you have a particular question or thought, please chime in, and we can discuss how a particular tool or concept is relevant to your business. I certainly enjoy that part of it. We're going to talk a lot, about kind of selling primarily today, but selling is, an element of marketing. And, one of my old school buddies used to say, marketing is everything and everything is marketing. And, I've pondered that quote over the years, and when I have kind of apply it to this particular definition of marketing, which is the best I've ever discovered, it's really apt. So if you think about marketing and marketing being business, it really is the identification and satisfaction of a given need of a given customer at a given point in time. And this is the only slide I'm going to read. That's one of the cardinal sins to me in doing presentations, when you read your own slides. But in this particular case, it's really germane, because if you think about your business, at some point, there was something that frustrated you. There was some impetus to start a business. And, I recall my, then wife about 25 years ago saying to me one day, I want to start a business. And I said, why? She says, well, because my brother has one. And I said, well, that's the worst possible reason to start a business. And so she said, so what do I do? I said, okay, well, let's start with something you love. And she said, I love golf. I said, okay, that's cool. What's wrong with golf? And she had an unholy half-hour fit about how the clothing is ugly. The section for women in the golf shop is in the back, and it's dusty, and they don't pay attention to you when you walk in the store. And she had this crazy fit about golf from a woman's perspective. So I said, this is easy. You're going to start a golf business for women. And in 1998, she launched a company called ladiesgolf.com, and it was a retail store and online store dedicated exclusively to women golfers. And it was very successful. She eventually sold it to Golfers Warehouse and went to work for them to change, the entire, women's section of their store and beyond. So that's an example of a really pressing, painful need that she chose to satisfy, again, at a point in time. And the point of time was the internet, or online shopping coming into vogue, and so many things all converging. So that's why, each of these elements is relevant. Pick a customer, pick a urgent and pressing need, and recognize that it's timely. That need will change and evolve over time, and things will happen in society and technology and government and things like COVID. And all of a sudden, the context your customer lives in will change. Okay. And if you don't adapt to those changes, eventually your business is going to kind of go off the rails. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really aligning your value proposition, the things that you provide to your customers, with their needs at points in time, and making sure that you remain relevant, and you remain relevant over time. So all that said, let's see. PowerPoint to change slides here. I think I'm on the wrong screen. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Bear with me one sec.
Take your time. I actually I love this slide because I often say it's, in sales, it's about what problem do you solve for whom? What are we doing
Right.
here? And I think you put a really finer point on it there by saying at that time. Right. And I think that's something super interesting. And I know in this group we talk about it because if you're doing marketing, you can create this great marketing scheme and it's perfect for a month or so, but then the world changes, something happens, and boy, in the last few years, things have happened quickly, right? So it's like, oh, who saw COVID coming? Okay, great. Well, wow, your marketing and your sales pitch probably changed pretty quickly in 2020, right? So I think it's super interesting. If you're sticking with the old stuff, you can still be solving a problem for someone, but it's not the right time. So I love that slide.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. So I think, when you start to think in that context, right, it becomes, and you start to think about that need. Who has that need? All right. And, and not just who has the need, who needs my product or service, or who might need my product or service, who suffers the most from not having your product or service. All right. So if I'm not mistaken, Kat, you do web development or web design. So in just in simplest form, right? Who has, more needs? Someone who doesn't have a website but has a brand new business, or somebody who has an existing business and their website might be a little crappy. Okay, but people still find them, right? The former has a greater need. It's more urgent. Okay, so when you think about the need, you also want to be thinking about pain. We're going to talk about that a little later as well. What is the cost to not addressing the need? Okay, think about it. If you accidentally, well, I'll use a personal story. A little over a year ago, I managed to cut my thumb pretty good on a table saw, and right to the bone, 10 stitches. Trip to the ER. The whole journey, right? As soon as I saw, the blood and realized what I did, I no longer was all that concerned about what I was having for dinner. All of a sudden that need became very pressing. And coincidentally, UMass Medical Center has an emergency department, and I really had a good alignment with their solution and my need, at that point in time, right? So that's a little morbid, right? But it certainly highlights a level of urgency for a customer need, right? I didn't need family medicine. I didn't need oncology. I didn't need cardiac care. I needed a guy with bandages, ice packs, and stitches. So there was, there's kind of a like I say, a morbid alignment. But when you figure out who suffers the most for lack of your product or service, that becomes your ideal customer profile. All right. Now, you can never know your customer too well. There was a book written back, I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s, called How to Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten, by a gentleman named Harvey McKay. And this is before CRM systems. This is before PCs and smartphones and any of this. And he was selling envelopes, one of the most boring products you could ever sell, one of the most commoditized products you can ever sell, something you can go buy from 100 resources. Why are you going to buy from them? Okay. In his so he developed a thing he called the McKay 66, which was a big sheet of paper with a lot of fields on it. And he would gather the executive assistants' birthday, their kids and dogs' names. He got to know anything and everything he could possibly know about their customer, their business. And he made their personal success his mission. It wasn't just about an envelope. This is the envelope you send to your customers. This is what you send checks to your vendors. This is what you send invoices to your customers. It can't look like crap. It can't come open. And he made it a mission to solve their problems. And then who had that? What of the customers were concerned about image? And he really started to align that. So you can't know your customer too well. All right. And you can't also, underestimate what it likes to monitor how they change. What's going on? Did my customer change because of COVID? Did my customer change because of inflation? What's happening out there? How do I align with it? But you can never know your customer too well. So let's assume that you know your customer. Then you have to think about what's their decision-making process look like? Now, this is, there are 100 diagrams like this out there, but it generally starts with the beginning of a recognition of a need, like, okay, just slice my thumb open on a table saw, to a solution, which is I've got my light bulb, I've got my stitches, painkillers, and light bulb of a bandage on my thumb, and I've got my solution. And by the way, the doctors were really good, so next time I cut something open, I'm probably going to go back to the same place. But you can map out a journey many different ways, but it starts with you become aware that you have a need for something. You're aware you have a problem. As the urgency of that problem elevates, you're going to become more interested in solving the problem, addressing that need. Now you're going to start evaluating alternatives. That's you're going to start looking. You're going to go online. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to evaluate alternatives. You might go test drive something. You might do a product trial, and then you might buy. One of my favorite examples of how a company might align their marketing with the buyer's journey or the buyer's thought process, because that's what this is. This is your buyer's journey. Is, let's say you all of a sudden say, it's about time that I buy a new vehicle. And so now all of a sudden you're a little more conscious that you want a new vehicle, and you're going to start paying attention. All of a sudden you're going to start noticing ads for Ford vehicles for the sake of discussion, right? So you say, okay, just Ford motor car. And then you say, yeah, I think this time around I want a pickup truck. And then all of a sudden you're going to start noticing that Ford actually has ads for Ford trucks. And then you start thinking about it a little more. And then you start thinking, I don't know which truck. And then all of a sudden you're going to see an ad for a Ford F-150. And then you say, that kind of looks like the truck I'm going to look at. Now you're driving down the street, you see a Ford dealer, you might pull in to test drive one. And then all of a sudden either the salesperson there or maybe an ad on TV says, oh, buy a Ford F-150 now and get a $1,500 rebate. So this is an example of the buyer's psychological journey from awareness to purchase, and the company delivering messages at every step of the way to kind of guide them towards their product or service. So that's why it's important to understand that buyer's journey and how the buyer's mind works and where they are at different points in that journey, so that you can kind of align your messaging, your communication, your sales efforts with that journey. All right. So any questions on any of that so far?
I actually have a question. I think a lot of times we hear how hard it is to secure an account, right? And that's really difficult. But I noticed that need, orientation, consideration, and decision are about half of the diagram, right? What's your experience in how people approach and I even noticed like at the top of decision, like payment, like customers very finicky today, like how they pay, right? Like
Mhm.
I want to pay with a credit card, I want to pay with a bank transfer, I want to pay, convenience is very important. I call it the Amazon effect, right? That I can go to
Yep.
Amazon and I will literally buy things on Amazon because I could go to the actual customer company's website and buy from them. I'll give you an example. Like I bought an Igloo cooler. Okay. Like, and it was more convenient for me to buy from Amazon than it would have been from the Igloo website or from another dealer of Igloo coolers because my payment information was already recorded inside of Amazon. Right.
Yeah.
What's your experience, Jim, like in terms of how people and your customers, the people you work with, think about delivery usage and loyalty? I
Right.
mean, especially for people in this group, it's often very difficult to, as sort of freelance professionals, you might work on a project, right? But the project ends. So now you don't have a sales team behind you. You're out here trying to find new deals all the time, right? But if you're working on a project, it's hard to sell. So you get caught in this feast or famine cycle of sales, do the work. Okay, now I got to sell something again. What about
Right.
delivery usage, loyalty? What's been your experience there, and how do we make that part of? I love this idea that your buyer's journey continues.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it has to be. So one, it has to be a mindset, right? If you're a small business or a solopreneur, you're always selling. Okay. You always are teeing up your next deal one way or another. Okay. So I'm gonna go into two directions here. First, in terms of say payments, right? One of my approaches to selling is removing obstacles to purchase. Okay. If you can map your buyer's journey to eliminate everything that's in the way of them making a purchase, you dramatically increase your likelihood of actually getting a sale. So what is an obstacle? What's an impediment? What disrupts the rhythm of a transaction? Okay, in terms of delivery, scheduling, all of these things. Does this slow it down? Does this disrupt the rhythm? Okay, you'll hear me say rhythm and cadence a lot. All right, you have to develop a rhythm. Okay, float downstream. Don't swim up waterfalls. Okay, what happens to salmon? Right, they swim a bunch of waterfalls, have sex once and die. Don't be a salmon. An otter grabs an urchin, pops it on his chest, and floats down the river. Be an otter, not a salmon. So in terms of loyalty, especially as solopreneurs, small business owners, there is nothing like a testimonial or a referral. Okay. Once you are absolutely positively sure that you have delivered value, and I'm going to say over delivered value to your customer, client, etc. And I'm going to suggest always leave them delighted, blow them away. Okay. It may hurt. It may require you to give up some free hours, give up something. Okay. And there are going to be those people who do not appreciate it, who take advantage and use of you and use and abuse you. But so what? Over deliver and over delight. And no one can complain, for one, but two, at the end of the day, you say, you know what? I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you, but is there anybody else that that is in a similar situation that I might be able to help? You have to get in the habit of asking for the referral. Okay? Ask for the referral. Ask for the testimonial. Shoot the little video clip. Put it on your YouTube channel. Put it on your social media. Maybe even have a dialogue with somebody. Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. It's been wonderful watching your business grow, watching this happen. Celebrate your successes. So most of the clients I work with, I'm really vigilant about them putting up case studies, success stories, getting quotes and testimonials, making that a big part of their marketing effort, celebrating the successes that you've enabled for your customers. So what is selling? Okay. And I like this guy because he's the epitome of what selling is not. Okay. The unfortunate thing is that we typically encounter salespeople when we're buying a car, a house, or insurance. And typically they are the worst sales professionals. Okay. They are the, the let's make a deal types. They are the, they're transactional. They just care about getting the commission in their pocket. The business models in those professions are designed that way, which is, counterproductive to building good long-term relationships. And I'm going to tell you something about selling, and I'm going to get into more stuff here, but as soon as you start convincing, you're done. You're toast. Okay. If you've got to convince, you might as well go home. You've lost them already. Okay. People buy, and this is another important thing. People buy for their reasons, not your reasons. So whatever your motivations are, toss them out the window. You want to help them be successful. You want to help them achieve their goals. Your goals will kind of naturally follow. So what is selling? Selling is a lot of different things. It's strategy and planning. If you don't know where you're going, it's exactly where you're going to end up. That's something I say very often. Prospecting, it sucks. Everybody hates prospecting, but everybody has to do it. If you're not willing to pick up the phone, you kind of really, I hate to say it kind of bluntly, but if you're not willing to pick up the phone, you don't deserve the customer. You got to be, there's a certain amount of paying your dues as a startup or a growth company to earning that success. Managing your opportunity. If you're a small business or a solopreneur, you never have enough time. And, you're always trying to balance delivery of service against, active pipeline, against prospecting. You just have to schedule it for yourself. And you have to manage opportunities effectively. A lot of times I'll see, especially young entrepreneurs with a really cool new product or service, they're so excited. They try to eat the elephant in one bite. They try to get the whole thing in their mouth. They figure, I can get this order with one sentence. If I say this right one sentence, I'm going to get the $50,000 contract. Doesn't work that way. Okay. You have to be patient and willing to kind of follow the buyer's journey. Closing, and I'll get into closing, but closing, there used to be a thing in selling 30, 40 years ago called the ABCs of selling. Always be closing. Does not work. Does not work anymore. It's not relevant. Again, people hate being sold. Today, the mantra is always be qualifying. And we'll talk about what that is in a bit. But qualifying is understanding customer needs and requirements and aligning with them, solving their problems. If you keep qualifying, customer convinces themselves. And again, pipeline management, knowing that if you don't have any deals in the pipeline, you don't have any prospects, you don't have any deals working, you might be buried, 100 hours a week trying to deliver everything you got on your plate, but you got no prospects. You're going to wake up one morning and go, oh crap, where's the next check coming from? The feast and famine cycle with entrepreneurship. So we're going to talk about planning. Okay. And you have to have a plan. Even if you scribble it on a piece of paper, scribble it on your wall, you have to have a plan. So what does a plan look like? It's real simple. I need this much revenue a year. And if I want $1 million in revenue and my average contract is $10,000, then I need 100 contracts. Pretty straightforward. Most of you should know. If you don't, I would suggest you need to know, and this will be some of your homework for this afternoon. Figure out what your average transaction value is. Okay, now you can actually even break that down further into what I would refer to as fish, orcas, and whales. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today, but I'll give you one example. One of my clients is the oldest commercial sign company in North America, based in Buffalo, New York. They've been making commercial signs for 120 years. And everything from movie marquees to the jumbotrons to you name it. For them, a fish is a deal up to $5,000 in size. That takes approximately 6 to 7 weeks to close. An orca is 5,000 to 50,000, and that takes 3 months to close. A whale is over 50,000, and that takes 7 months to close. Okay. We analyze and monitor these numbers quarterly, annually. We look at a lot of other metrics weekly. But we, teaching this culture and embedding this culture, they went, when I found them in the middle of COVID, at 2.5 million to 5 to 6 to 7 million. And that's selling signs in Buffalo, New York. So, this is what, kind of knowing where you're going does for you. And so, again, I'll repeat myself on a few things. But one is, if you don't know where you're going, it's exactly where you're going to end up. So start with, how many customers at my average deal value do I need to achieve my revenue goal? Now, by the way, when you have all these numbers, you can plan your capacity to deliver and a lot of other elements of the business that you need to manage. So the numbers I'm going to give you are conversion rates that are typical in, shall we say, a complex B2B transaction. So whether you're selling a $50,000 digital message center sign, or Kat is selling a $50,000, top to bottom website rebuild, re-platform, the whole shoot match, right? You got to deliver 250 proposals to win 100 customers. All right, so this is called, these are all conversion rates. So your proposal to customer conversion rate, or your close rate, is typically in a B2B sales environment going to be around 40%. So you want 100 customers, you've got to deliver 250 proposals. To even have the opportunity to deliver 250 proposals, you have to open up 500 qualified opportunities. Now, qualified opportunity means you're dealing with influencers and decision makers. You're having meetings and conversations. They have a need for your product or service within 12 months, and they have some budget. There's money allocated to pay for, again, your product or service. If you do the math, the rough math too, 25 to 30% of opportunities open or deals opened are is closed. So you can even simplify the math. I had this many initial meetings, call it the 15 to 20 minute discovery call, and I sold this many deals. That's a very simple conversion rate. Opportunities open to deals closed. But you should know what that is. You should track that. How many, I'm going to get into kind of some structured selling in a little bit. But you need 500 opportunities open to get 100 customers. So where do the opportunities come from? They come from what's called a sequel, or a sales qualified lead. What is a sales qualified lead? Sales qualified lead is an individual human being with valid contact information that you've had some level of interaction, that is an influencer or strong a strong influencer or decision maker that needs your product or service within 12 months. And that's a real important distinction, within 12 months. Because if it's beyond 12 months, too many things can happen. The sell cycle is, unless you're dealing with 1 to 2 year sell cycles, which most of us aren't, you're going to just spin your wheels. And time is your greatest asset. Not worth chasing. So what do you do for all of them? Well, the rest of them are marketing qualified leads, or MQLs. And an MQL is somebody who does need your product or service. They don't necessarily have a high level of urgency, but they could buy it, or they could know somebody who's going to buy it. And this is the kind of person you don't want to spend a lot of sales effort on, but you do want to market to them. If you do email campaigns or any level of email marketing, you want to put them into a nurture campaign. You want to get them your newsletters. You want to make sure that you're connected with them on social media and they're seeing your social media posts. You want to be trying to keep top of mind and establishing credibility with them. You know, when you publish a thought leadership post, you say, hey, I'm an expert in this. I wrote this article. You post it. You want to make sure they're seeing it. So you want to be connected with them on social media. Above that is a lead. And leads, you know, whether lead lists, submissions on your website, wherever they come from, 20% are junk. So that's the difference between a lead and a marketing qualified lead. And above that is eyeballs. Okay. So if you are a larger company, and again, most of us aren't, we're very small companies, right? But you have to know where, you know, kind of where you're going. It's just smaller numbers. You can also enter the funnel lower, right? You may not have the budget to go get thousands of eyeballs on your website via pay-per-click, extensive search engine optimization efforts, all these different things you can do to get people to be aware of your business. You may not have the budget to do that. So you can get lead lists, you can do networking, you can go to events. So you can just jump down the funnel and say, I'm going to enter at marketing qualified leads. That's where I'm going to focus my energy. I'm just going to get marketing qualified leads, and I'm going to work them. I'm going to nurture them. I'm going to develop relationships. You know, and then when I see the need, they become sequels. So you plan from the bottom up. You execute from the top down. Okay. Any questions or thoughts on any of this piece?
Yeah, I someone submitted in the chat. It was Arkai, and I think you may have touched upon, maybe you've answered it here, but the question was really around identifying, best identifying the influencer who is the right person to touch base with. You know, yeah, are there any sort of qualifications you can use, you know, aside from saying, are you the right person, right? And sometimes they say they are anyway, and they're not, but I've had that happen a few times. But, you know, is there anything in your experience where you could say, hey, and I love your point about where you enter the funnel, because a lot of times we, as small business owners, we don't have a budget to go out and buy, you know, I'd like, you know, 500,000 names, please, in a list, and, you know, start working from there. We're not in that space, but entering, you know, lower in that funnel is a great idea. But let's just say we came into, you know, we're trying to find the difference between MQL and SQL, right? And so how do we find that sequel? How do we find that right person? Or are there any identifiers, you know, things that you can use, like the tips or trick here that we could use?
Right. So if you're already in business and somebody has paid you at least once for your product and service, right? You know, you have at least a base hypothesis for your ideal customer profile, right? You understand that in this client, I dealt with these 3 people. Here's the roles of each of the 3 people. This person was influenced the decision. This was the user, but this was the buyer. This person paid the bill, but they wouldn't have paid the bill if this person wasn't an advocate for my solution. Okay. So now your ideal customer profile is a company, but then within the company, it's a group of people who have influence and or decision-making ability. Okay. And then you know what their titles are. So now you just go find like customers, right? Now there are services like Rocket Reach is $80 a month. And on Rocket Reach, you can get like unlimited searches and individual contact information. So if I want to find, let's say for me, boutique venture capital firms are to help launch startups and early stage companies. That's a sweet spot for me because I build out this marketing and sales engine for them, and I basically accelerate the growth of their startup or the ventures that small companies they've invested in, whatever, right? So I'm going to go look for the same profile of person and reach out. Now you can warm the lead. There's a technique called warming the lead, and it's also known as trolling, right? But you're going to go find them on social media, look them up, find out what their interest is, find something that you can celebrate. Like, okay, you find out their company had a recent success that they publicize. Hey, just won this customer, completed this project. Well, when you reach out to that person, you can have a warmer message. You've identified this is the head of this in this company. They're a parallel to somebody I've already succeeded with, so I can draw a reference to that. I should understand some of the pain points because I solved them already. And now it's just you're replicating the success story, but you still got to get them to have a conversation with you. So this is where kind of your selling playbooks and some stuff we'll talk about in a few minutes come into play. But it's again understanding their pain and so on and so forth.
I think that Archive. I hope that answered your question, Archive. I think that my takeaway there was look at your existing account where you've had some success, and look at the people, the actual people you're working with inside of that account. I think it's really important. We talk a lot about in sales or marketing trying to find the ICP, but that's just a generalized version of the person. Right, there is a person inside that organization that's going to ultimately buy from you or influence your sale or whatever. There's 3 or 4 people usually that do that. But I think that's a really important thing to do. Look what you have at your disposal, take that away, and say, all right, who else out there looks like this person, right? Like with that title, could be the title, role, responsibility, etc., and expand from there. So, Archive, did that answer that?
100%. Plus, Jim's example actually works best because literally the same niche working with venture capital. So made it much more easier.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Awesome. Cool. All right, so I want to take you off talking about. We have about 15 minutes remaining in this, and I do want to leave a little Q&A time at the end. So, go.
The rest of this flies pretty fast. So again, where do I start? Right, prospecting. Right, it's like you got to make a list. Right, you just did the math. Right, we went through this pipeline exercise. You should know how many sequels you got. Start working on a list. Okay, find all your lookalikes, get their contact information, either through referrals, LinkedIn, or databases like Rocket Reach. I've found is one of the best out there. There's many similar, but I just have found that their contact information to be higher quality. Make a script, right? One of the things I do for a lot of my clients, I actually create the playbook and literally write the script, and then work with each business development professional to refine it to their personality so it's natural. I make them rehearse it. All right. Every prospect, when you're a small business, every prospect is gold. Don't practice on them. Practice on your dog. Don't practice on a live prospect. So, Fluffy, what's really keeping you up at night these days?
My dog's been my worst critic over the years, so that's been.
Oh yeah, they just been like, you're a moron. What are you? What
all I want from you are my treats. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair, right? She tells me what she wants, so that's fine.
Yeah. But getting your scripts, and now remember in your script, it's asking questions. All right, and this is another thing that's really critical is you're asking, not talking. I always think about, have a little bird chirping in your ear, right? When you're in a customer interaction, did the last thing that come out of my mouth have a question mark at the end of it? All right? If the answer is no, you're violating the ultimate rule. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Get them talking. Okay? Ask questions. How was your last quarter? Whatever it is. Get them talking about their dog. It doesn't matter. Get them talking. And all of your scripts should be oriented to getting them talking. Okay? And generally talking about pain. The other thing is, you got to pick up the phone. If you're not willing to pick up the phone, you don't deserve the business. All right? Prospecting sucks, but you have to do it. It really comes down to how bad you want your business to succeed. You got to be willing to pick up the phone. And again, qualify. Asking good questions, understanding their needs, their pain points. What does success look like for them? How do you partner with them to generate their success? That is the best mindset I've ever found for selling. When you get into prospecting, it's about the numbers. One of the companies I did some work with was a solar company. They literally had a room of 30 people making 500 dials a day to give free solar to people. Okay? 500 dials a day times 30 people to give it away. Because it's 7 to 10 calls. All right? It's 7 contact attempts. So when I do a playbook, it's here's a voicemail that you're going to leave on contact attempt 1. Here's the email. 2 days later, here's the voicemail. Here's the email. 2 days later, boom, boom, boom. You can intermingle LinkedIn messaging. But it's 10. Your playbook should have 10 contact attempts. The average is 7 before you get a reach. Now, the metrics or the KPIs in prospecting are contact attempts or dials is an oversimplification because some are other kinds of messaging, but dials, reaches, appointments. This is another thing as you build a sales team, it's important to understand there are 3 sales personalities, and they are very different human beings. And it really is painful when you hire the wrong person for the wrong role. So you have the person who's an account manager. They're great at maintaining and nurturing an existing account relationship, maybe looking for more business, but they keep everybody happy. That's a certain personality type. Then you have the closer, the adrenaline junkie who is virtually drunk every time they close a deal, just in endorphins in their brain. Okay? They're the hunter-killer. Oh, I closed the deal? Oh, next deal, right? But they're horrible at maintaining long-term customer relationships. And they won't prospect because it's too tedious and the payoff takes too long. A BDR who's really good at prospecting day in, day out is a sociopath. You can tell them to pound sand. You can hang up on them. You can scream at them. You can pee on their leg. They don't care. They're going to keep dialing because for them, success is I got my 500 dials. I got my 25 reaches. I got my 5 appointments. Pound sand the rest of you. I hit my goal, right? They're completely insensitive to anything. Hit them in the head with a hammer. They're like, yeah, fine. Next dial. I've seen countless companies make the critical mistake of putting the wrong personality type in the wrong sales seat. I made the mistake myself, damn near destroyed a company I had years ago. I put an account manager in a prospecting role.
Jim,
horrible mistake.
Yeah, I'm questioning Jim on this. If you're trying to grow a small business and maybe you're wearing a lot of hats, so you have to do a lot of this yourself, right?
Yep.
When is it, I've worked with Drew Hanna before. He's on this call. He probably knows me to be the closer type, right? I just want to close the deal. I really do not want to pound those calls and I really am not the person you want to be engaged long run with your with the customer, right? Like I'll probably screw up that relationship at some point, right? So
Yep.
yeah, I'd rather be closing deals and moving to the next one to close than I would be the other two. But still, in my career, I have to back up and be like, hey, in this role, Phil, you've got to account manage right now, or you have to take that on, or
you have to prospect.
Today, you're prospecting, Phil, right?
Yep.
And so that's just want to kind of bring that up because despite the fact that we wish we all had these giant, I had a room full of BDRs and a room full of closers and a room full of account managers. It takes, one, it takes a long time to get there, and two, it may not even be your business model, right? So, yeah. So be prepared to wear a lot of hats, I guess, Jim, is that what you're saying? Be prepared,
Yeah.
Throw the hats on, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got to throw the hat. You got to put it on your calendar. Okay, 1 hour, 2 hours a week prospecting. Period. Do it. No excuses. Make yourself do 100 sit-ups if you don't do your 100 calls, right?
Penalties.
Right. I mean, how many of the Tony Robbins of the world say you want to be more successful than the next guy? You got to do what the next guy won't. Okay. I always used to, I taught marketing at Northeastern. I always used to say, who one of the most successful guys in town always is? The guy who owns a dumper pumper. The guy who comes and empties your septic tank. I don't know about, you guys in Europe, but in the US, you have a big tank where everything from your toilet goes, and someone's got to come empty it every month. In every town in, like where we live, where Phil and I live, there's a guy who owns the truck that does that. Guy always has a nice house and a brand new car in his driveway. You ever notice the guy with the dumper pumper has the best car in town?
Good, because he'll do stuff that other people
no one else wants to do.
He will do stuff that other people won't do. I love the example. Yep. Yeah, the septic tank maintenance person, right? Yeah. Yep. The other one is when there's a same industry construction site. They often have a little hut there for people to use.
Yep.
Maybe an international
Porta
potty, right? Somebody who maintains the porta potties. That is a person who's never out of business. In fact, they're usually very successful. Yeah, great point.
Yep.
Let's put that down. Imagine, do what others will not do, right? Yeah.
Yep. So prospecting, it's about the numbers, how many dials, how many reaches, how many appointments, get the meeting. The goal is not to make the sale in the prospecting call. The goal is to get the meeting. All right. In professional B2B selling, the goal of every meeting is to get the next meeting. If you're qualifying, they'll be like, will you shut the hell up and let me buy something from you? I want to buy this. They've sold themselves. Okay. I've got a hot one. That's when managing opportunities comes into play. Depending on the complexity of your sale, you can have up to a 4-stage deal process. And again, we can do a whole seminar just on this, but basically you have a discovery call, your first quick call to see if it's worth a deeper conversation, your deep dive if it is, your presentation, and then your quote. Okay. And you want to think of these as distinct steps. So in a P1, this initial call here, and one of the things we do is we codify this into the CRM. These are all things that the sales rep or a BDR has to put into the CRM. All right. It forces them to stick to good process. A P1 initial discovery call, confirm they're interested. Give a quick elevator pitch. If you can't do your elevator pitch, like people say, what do you do, Jim? I start and grow companies. That's my elevator pitch. Really? Well, it's got intrigue. It creates more questions and answers. It incites a discussion. That's what an elevator pitch should do. Uncover 3 or 4 pain points. What's keeping them up at night? That's a really good opener. So, hey, I'll get right to the point. What's keeping you up at night? What's the most pressing issue you're trying to overcome in your business right now? Do you have budget allocated to that? What's it costing you? Blah, blah, blah. P2, deep dive. If a P1, by the way, the goal of every meeting to get the next meeting. P1, you ask these questions. So based on what you're telling me, it sounds like it's worth a deeper conversation. When can we, and I want to be respectful of your time. We only scheduled 15 minutes today. This deep dive is going to take 45. When can we schedule that? Now you get into a deep discussion of the needs they have for your product or service. Then I think I understand what you need. You confirm it. And again, I'm going quick here because we're trying to cram, years of training into an hour. But from then, you make a presentation. You make that presentation customized to their business situation. There's always something you can tweak in your presentation to put it in better context based on what they've told you. You remove things, you add, features, services, you add, you remove, so that you're giving them the perfect solution for them. At the end of that meeting, you confirm that that's correct. You get any changes or amendments need to be made. You say, okay, I'm going to send you an SOW and a quote. When can we meet to go over that? By the way, you never email a presentation. You never email a quote. Cardinal sins. I'm sure anybody who's done it knows exactly what happens the second you do. Crickets. Things get really quiet. So if you're stressed and you want quiet time and you need a little alone time, start sending proposals out via email. You'll get lots of quiet time. So this is structured selling. A few tools, and I think we're bumping up time. I'm going to go through these really quick. Upfront contract is a meeting technique, opening and closing, pain funnel, CRM systems. This is all stuff you can research. An upfront contract, this is how you open and close a meeting. And the ANOT acronym is basically giving you the 4 elements of it. Appreciation, naturally, obviously, typically. I really appreciate your time today. Naturally, you're going to have a few questions for me. Obviously, I'm going to have some questions for you. And typically, at the end of this meeting, we'll decide if it's worth a deeper meeting. Okay? So it's set an expectation for what you're going to give, what you expect them to give, what's going to happen at the end of the meeting, and always say thank you. That's called an upfront contract. You should have that at the beginning of every meeting and the end of the meeting. The end of the meeting, thank you for your time. This is what I got from the meeting. I think you got this from the meeting. And if I'm correct, we should set another meeting. Okay, so you bookend your meetings. Pain funnel. Pain is, my sales are shrinking, my margins are shrinking, whatever the business problem is. Well, what have you tried to do to fix it? How has that worked? Why do you think it didn't work? So going from the problem on the surface, the high level problem, getting into the details of the problem. And then they say, it's only, we've all heard, right? It's not personal. It's only business. Bullshit. It's always personal. There's always a personal impact from a business failure. I didn't get my bonus. My kid's not going to get the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip for Christmas. My wife's going to make me sleep on the couch. The dog's going to pee on my leg. All these things because I didn't get this deal closed, right? There's always a personal impact. So navigating a pain funnel, and again, deeper sales training, you can get into, okay, this is the business problem. What have you tried? How's that affecting you? What's that doing to the company? How's that affecting you personally? How's that affecting your team? That's got to be tough. Okay. People react to emotional pain, not business pain. Okay. That's where you build the relationship. That's where you create urgency. CRM systems, document it. I don't care if you use a piece of paper. Salesforce and HubSpot are too expensive for most. Use a spreadsheet. Pipedrive's a really good deal management system. But document your activities, document your to-dos, make appointments for yourself to do follow-ups, manage your sales efforts. Okay? Fortune's in the follow-up. If you don't manage what you're doing and you don't keep the rhythm and cadence of your activities, you're going to fail. And I made my presentation under the wire. I'm okay time-wise if we run over a few minutes. I don't know if anybody else is, but questions?
Yeah, I'll be here and I'll leave this open as long as anyone wants to stay. And it was Alexandra, you submitted a question, but I'm not sure I'm going to get it just right. If you want to come off mute, but you mentioned would it be wise to take the prospecting tool as a way to also get metrics about niche behavior? Can you expand that a little bit, Alexandra?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the presentation, Jim. My question is more related to if while prospecting is a good idea to track some of the answers we're getting to try to understand better the market we are prospecting at the moment. That's my point. I don't know if it's worth it to keep tracking all the information we can gather from those cold callings.
Absolutely. Data is king, right? So, you heard me talking about like fish, orcas, and whales, deal size, close cycles, etc. We also track reasons a deal is lost. Okay. So, they chose a competitor, the price was too high, they didn't choose to act, right? Doing nothing is a competitor. So understanding also, in your prospecting call, which message got the highest level of response. In typical marketing, that's called A/B testing. You might show two versions of an email, see which one does better. You might, when you're starting to document, when I go through here, right? When you look at the pain points, okay, you can either have, like, if you put this in your CRM system, because these are your discovery calls. This is that very first intro call. You could have, let's say for your product or solution, there's typically one of 10 pain points. And for any different customer, the pain points are different. So you could make your pain points a drop down. This is the number 1 pain point. This is the number 2 pain point. This is the number 3 pain point. And then you can analyze, the prospects or the deals that closed at the higher rate were based on this pain. Okay. That's a really good idea. That's getting really granular. It's harder sometimes to get your salespeople to document. But what I find is incentivize the behavior you want. Like, I've got one client that just loves paying commissions, and I want to kill him because he's paying commissions to a sales manager. And then the sales manager allocates who gets the rest of the deals to the other sales team members. So he keeps all the good deals for himself and gives all the crap to them. There are no bonuses for them following the sales process other than they get it. If it helps them close a deal and they make more money in commissions, then they say, oh yeah, the sales process is good, but I want to do it faster and shorter so that I can close more deals. And then they start shooting themselves in the foot because they stop following the process. They cherry pick a process and it goes right out the window. So that's a great question. As long as you have incentives to the person to drive the behavior you want, which is gathering that data, say, okay, you could make 25% of their bonus for a quarter data accuracy and completeness. I love comp plans like that.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure we answer that. Thanks, Alexandra. Yes, we are approaching the end of our time together. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask them here, come off mute, whatever. Not seeing anything more. Drew, yes?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I imagine that the folks on this call with us are the salespeople themselves, that they're not managing a sales team. And you're seeing the pipeline and the functional steps and lining that up with the buyer's journey. That's very thought-provoking. But one of the things you said I thought was especially relevant to this group. You mentioned that one of the aspects is at the right time. And you also mentioned the notion that it's possible to enter the funnel well down, not at the very top, but in the middle somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this happen in places that only have one salesperson or maybe two. Incidents drive action. And so if you know about something that's going on for a client, that may signal to you it's the right time.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a way, and I guess this is a question for Jim. Is that a way to come in the middle of in the middle of that process rather than having to start at the very beginning? If you know a company is dealing with something because you read about it in the paper or, however you found it out.
Right. So, yeah. And so there's different ways to do it, right? So, and it depends who's doing it, right? So if let's say you're in the account manager role, right? It's a talent sniffing out new business opportunities, the next contract. Okay. So in that case, you need to have quarterly business reviews where you're going over here's the pain point, here's the objectives, here's the pain points we sought to alleviate. Here are the actions, here's deliverables, boom, boom, boom. How are things from your perspective? Any new priorities or pain points? So a really good account manager is always looking at sniffing out the next thing. If it's kind of on a prospecting level where it's a new client, new customer, new prospect, you're warming the prospect. You're going from cold calling to warm calling by, as you said, Drew, you found something on LinkedIn, you found something in the news. Okay. So for example, my sign client does business with Big Lots, who is doing a right sizing move, closing 300 stores. Well, somebody's got to go take all the signs down. So now I, got the sales team at the sign client calling Big Lots and saying, hey, when are you doing these? Do you need help coordinating such a big project of 300 stores all at once that need the signs taken down? So, yeah, it's a great example, Drew. You just have to be alert and vigilant, and know your customer, know what's going on with them.
Yeah, I think the 7 to 10 touches before you connect is something that's probably beyond the means of a sole practitioner because they're not gonna they just don't have the ability to do that. They're busy delivering.
Right. So yeah, you're right. So you move down the funnel by going to networking events, going to trade shows. Be where the people you want to sell are
at that time.
Yes.
They need
Yeah.
both.
Right. At that time. Right. So be where they are.
Great stuff, Jim.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And the last one, Arka, you have another question?
Yeah. So Jim, I love what you said about case studies and social proof. One of the main challenges that happens with my work is, even though I do a lot of strategy work and I've helped a lot of businesses get to 10, 20 million ARR, I don't get to showcase that because it's often under NDAs or I'm working on with funds or someone or the other. And so there's not enough for me to showcase. The few projects I can showcase, there's not much of an impact for me to be able to convince others. I get a lot of my leads from accelerators and VCs do refer me, but that's very seasonal. So as someone who's trying to break out there without having much social proof, but a lot of experience, how do you go about, doing that outreach? Because if I can get someone on a call, I'm able to close them. But it's that getting those people on a call, I'm not having enough incentives to do that.
Right. So you can do case studies by anonymizing the success story.
Okay.
Right. So, remove the names to protect the innocent. You can talk in general terms, but you can talk in specific metrics. A company in the following industry had the following challenge. This solution was proposed. This was the outcome of that solution. Okay. And get a testimonial, 2-3 sentence testimonial from the person. And it's like John Q. Again, you can anonymize it in a way that you're not violating an NDA. You can get their approval. You can also ask for referrals from them, because, they invariably know other people in their industry, in their role, in similar situations. And, sometimes you just got to really go hard on referrals.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that's the main thing. Like, obviously referrals are coming in, but I'm trying to just expand further, get more deal flows coming in and everything, so that we can obviously hire more people as well and scale this further.
You can also do thought leadership articles, right? You can take the knowledge gained that if you take these actions, implement these kind of systems, these kind of business processes, that, these are the potential gains for the business. Okay, you can make a business case for implementing particular solutions and write thought leadership articles and post those instead of doing case studies.
Got it. Awesome.
That might also help to get you sort of down in that funnel, right? Like, where can I enter into this funnel? I see someone in my LinkedIn contacts, I see something in the news about them, or something happened. To Drew's point, an event has happened. Oh, here's something I did. Now I can present to them this valuable piece of information, right? And that's another key thing in the sales process. I find that is, if I'm at the right time, to Drew's point, now I've got this limited resource. What can I do? Oh, I have this, as you said, Jim, some thought leadership thing. Hey, this might be useful to you. Now I've added value too, right? So now it's even better for them at that point in the funnel. But
I go on LinkedIn every day and I find half a dozen things that I can celebrate for somebody else. Right.
Another social thing I found very useful as well is to just engage there and to make sure that we're celebrating. I love that point, celebrating somebody else's wins. That's, or anything really. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations. How you doing? Let's grab coffee one of these days.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Haven't seen you in a year. Let's grab coffee. What's happening? What are you doing? Just have fun. That's another part of this. Have fun. We're in business for ourselves, so we can have fun, because we hate dealing with the crap with having bosses.
Exactly. Yeah, those bosses, they get in the way. That's a great point too. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the idea of the discipline of it. You said you do it every day. That's one thing I would say we've spent a lot of time on with this group. In terms of sales process, you have to get it on your calendar. I thought that's a great point, Jim. Like, if it's in your calendar, you follow through, then that habit becomes, it's going to pay dividends because it just compounds over time, right? That's the idea. So.
Yeah. And it's like, you gotta want it. It's like, I saw a little mini documentary on Walter Payton, and he wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest. He just said, I want it more than anybody else out here.
Yeah, I agree. Eat the frog, Archive says. That's a great one. Well, I appreciate it, dude. Thanks very much. Thanks to all of you for attending today. Really was an awesome, packed hour plus. We will publish this. We'll clean up the video a little bit, get this out for members of the group. If you want to watch it again, come back to it. And if you have any questions, follow up in the Slack group. You can submit it to me. You can find Jim in there as well. And you can take it offline. Awesome. Yes, Archive wants part 2. I'm sure there's like about 1,000 parts Jim could dive into here. So appreciate that. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for your time today. And thanks, Jim, for presenting. And we'll see you all back in the Slack group.
My pleasure. Best, everybody. Take care.